Hello, hello. Welcome back. I'm your host, Tia Marie, the Soul Potential CEO, founder of Sinatia or the Sinatia Project. And I'm here today to talk about accelerating your spiritual journey, how to focus on what matters most on the path to personal growth. This is a big conversation, and it is something that I have personally learned a lot from over the years. And I'm stepping in the conversation today, just to talk simply about what I have learned on a spiritual seeking journey that coincides with entrepreneurial growth. And I think this is a really important conversation to have. I think it's an important conversation for many people out there to hear. And if you are somebody who resonates with, who understands what I'm sharing here, please go ahead and share this recording, share this podcast with somebody else in your life that needs to hear it. There are so many different ways to discover what it is that we are here to create in the world. And there are so many different ways and different paths to quote unquote healing, to quote unquote personal growth, to all the things that we attempt to actualize and create in the world. And what I have found is that there are also certain ways, specific ways that get us there further, faster, with more pure, clean access to our own states of limitless potential, and ones that, help us get to where we actually want to go. And that's the conversation that I'm here to have today. So let's talk about the doorway. The truth is, when you are on a journey of spiritual growth or personal growth, we are always engaging with the aspects of us that are a bit unknown because we know who we are right now in this moment and we know where we want to go, right? So, like, if you were somebody who was just completely like over the moon, pleased with everything that you had right now, right here, exactly as you are in this moment, you most likely would not be someone who's interested in the concept of personal or spiritual growth. Now, that being said, like, there's nothing wrong with living in the moment and enjoying the moment. And I believe that presence is a lot different than enjoying like exactly where you are in your life, or the idea that we are supposed to, if we are elevated consciousness, just be perfectly happy with whatever we have right here in the moment. I've never really bought into that. And I've never really bought into that for a very specific reason that I think is really important to bring up. Presence is different than, in my opinion, being in the moment, right? So presence is a whole and complete field. Like, it's a comprehensive field. It's where your identity is on board. It's where you are focused on what you are creating. It is a force of nature, which is different than the notion of sitting in a particular moment and trying to be present, quote unquote, with exactly what is, even if exactly what is isn't really what you want it to be. I have always given myself permission to be a future focused person, to be somebody that has dreams and is willing to go for them. And that has taken me far. And I truly, truly, truly believe in my bones that as a species, as consciousness in human form, as spirit and body, as soul and human, we have a desire, we are sparked by desire to create things in the world. And in order to even tap into desire, we have to see something in front of us that we want to create. And that something in front of me is always a future vision. It is a desire to have an experience. It is, you know, it's a quote unquote goal. It's just where I can see myself going. And the way that I understand this to be active in my being is really just about time. It's about the fact that I can tap into a future timeline. I am reconciling and dealing with consistently a past timeline. and I'm experiencing a present timeline in the now. And all of those three things are me. All of the time that I'm engaging with is all part of me. And so I do not have an issue with the idea of personal growth, spiritual growth, forward motion, movement, vision. I think it's a highly transformative field. But what we need to remember is that the doorway creates the destination. So meaning the doorway that we self-initiate ourselves on through, the doorway we walk through decides where we end up, not because we are powerless to lead ourselves, but because we have chosen it, right? If the soul comes to earth to have a human experience, let's just simplify the nomenclature around things that we talk about: soul purpose, soul mission, soul frequency, things like that. If the soul's purpose is to come to earth to have a human experience, simply put, then this means that anything you experience is fine. It can be misery or magic. On a soul level, it's perfectly acceptable. And the human experience is enough. I mean, that's the choice that we made. But then there's this notion of a soul mission, right? And the soul mission being what you choose, right? So within the context of like misery or magic, which one do you want? What is left in that? Well, it's simply your choice. And it's simply a decision on how you decide to choose your own adventure here on earth. And that comes back to the doorway creates the destination. The purpose or the topic of this chat is how to focus on what matters most on the path to personal growth. And what I am identifying in my own experience as what has mattered most in my journey of that was stepping out of seeking, right? Seeking, asking questions to get them answered for me by others, seeking to heal, seeking to fix problems, seeking to find myself, seeking in general, because a seeking doorway will always lead you to more seeking. When I chose to step through a doorway of creating for my soul's potential, it was when everything shifted for me, which is why this is the work that I focus on creating in the world. This is the work that I know that I am here to speak about, to facilitate others with. This is the most potent and streamlined growth process, evolutionary journey that I have ever engaged in. And the reason for that is because the doorway of my potential will always lead me to my potential. Within that, I may end up inadvertently, not inadvertently, intentionally, perhaps not aware always, healing aspects of myself that are not me. I may end up completely shifting, changing my relationships, my relationship to money, my identity, who I thought I was, right? But I'm always keeping my eye on the prize, because the truth for me and what I have learned through teaching on this for hundreds and hundreds of hours and serving so many clients in this space is that our soul potential, or what we are capable of, is the truest aspect of our divine nature. Self-initiated evolution is a very powerful perspective to take when we're talking about what matters most on a path to personal growth, because there are so many things that we can identify that are needs to change. So we need to change things when we're suffering from an experience of something that we do not like, and we know that something needs to change. So perhaps we know we need to change how we relate to other people in relationships. We know we need to develop better leadership skills in our business in order to be successful. We know that we need to, feel more confident so that we can show up and speak about the things that we want to speak about. Maybe we know we need to work on our delivery, right? Like how we execute. All of these things become true in the journey of rising to the call of creating from your soul's potential. But the need to fix things is different than, or like beginning a journey with a need to fix something that we think is not working for us is different than being on the journey and developing skills over time. There are a few themes that consistently rise up that I want to talk about here, because they are going to make it on the list of what to focus on. One is the fact that mental programming, fear, wealth, our relationship to wealth, our relationship to money, and the quality of the teachings that we engage with are a formula that will greatly affect our efficiency and our ability to end up where we meet that vision eye to eye. So I'm just going to explain this in a little more detail. Fear always comes up, the subconscious programming always comes up because it is scary to walk into the unknown. It's scary to create without proof in your business. It is scary to make shifts and changes and go down different roads in your life if we don't know that it's going to work. And so for me, every time I am in an up level in my business or my personal life, I am always met with some degree of fear about becoming the bigger version of myself. And for that reason, I have focused on inside my body of work, building a tool that really addresses how we deal with fear so that we can run clean data, process clean data through our operating system. I have found this approach to be much more effective than focusing on clearing beliefs and changing, narratives and doing healing the past, because I have found that as I think more clearly, more intelligently in the future, right? Meaning that second right before taking a leap into something that is unknown, if I think more clearly about myself in the future of me, then those things that were telling me that I couldn't do it in the first place are automatically proven to be false. So I'm creating without proof and then proving proving that I can in the moment of taking that choice. And it really is kind of similar to just being able to take the first step into a place that we don't know much about. Very simple. This is a very important thing to be aware of and an important step on the path to personal growth, I believe. The second thing that comes up with is your vibration. So how you operate in daily life, like the literal way that you show up, the embodiment factor, as I would call it. And then again, having access to high frequency information. So fields of awareness that are not distorted, not kind of, what would I call them? Confusing, right? They're simple, they're potent, they're teachings that we can engage with and allow ourselves the space to build what we are here to build on top of them, instead of focusing on going down all these crazy rabbit holes. And these are things that you're going to hear me talk about a lot in different chats that I have in teachings and online, because I believe this to be true. I've experienced it. Before I move into my top 3 tips for how to focus on what matters most on the path to personal growth, I just want to share a little story about what I went through when I was desperate to shift and change my career. I had a desire to live a different life. And this was after much success from a life that I had created. And one of the things that was so interesting for me was to arrive to a place where I had been accustomed to forever in my life having great ideas. In fact, having so many ideas, I could never create them all. And I lived like this, I had ideas about projects to start. I always had ideas, career ideas, ideas about connections, collaborations, who I should talk to next. It was a rich landscape of inspiration for me until it wasn't. And then when I was sat with the question of, okay, well, what's next? What could be next? I had no ideas. Not a single thought. I realized that I was so dependent on the identity that I had spent, decades crafting, that had been a part of my awareness since I was a small child about what I was here to do. And I was always, on the mission work tip, like these things. I did these things in my life. I made the choices I did because I was a passionate person. I was passionate about creating. But then when it was time for me to do a pivot, for me to do like a full reboot, I just had nothing. And I felt the sensation I felt was like, you know, being in a forest full of fog where it was so thick I couldn't even see the trees through the forest. I couldn't see my way through. And when I experienced this, what I started to do was call psychics. I started to ask for questions to be answered on my behalf because I had no internal answers at all. And the only thing I could think of was that there was some mysterious wisdom out there for me that my human brain could not latch onto. And so I began to seek spiritually instead of, I would say, in a logical manner that I had been accustomed to for most of my life. And when I started to speak or seek spiritually, I did the things that everybody does. I looked for answers in the places where I found brokenness. So I started to take programs about healing myself in relationships, sexually. I started to take programs on different tools and techniques and things out there that would help me to understand who was I as this different version of me, who was I as a person who had the answers versus the person that I had, hit a wall with, that version of me that had no answers. And I spent a very long time in this place, I would say about, 10 years. And towards the end of it, um, I started to understand that no matter what doorway I entered, and this was an incredible gift. It didn't feel incredible at the time when I when I was experiencing it, but like no matter what doorway I entered through, I would always end up at the end of the road and say, well, no, this wasn't the thing that I was looking for. And so that sensation, that experience really guided me. It really inspired me to create something different in the world, to create an alternative, to be part of a solution for the quote unquote problem that I was experiencing. And that led me to the work that I am doing now. And one of the things that I am really passionate about for my clients is allowing them to, or giving them the tools to engage in that self-initiation and then work on being the builders of their own doorway with the intention, with the absolute true and sovereign knowing that they have everything that they need, that they already know deep, deep down what it is that they're here to do. And that by investing in guidance, they will be shown what that is through the process of engaging with it. And I have found this to be true over and over and over. And where I find people when they say yes to that is building rich landscapes of their own genius, like real, true innovation and genius, not just, carbon copies and copies and copies and, the same thing that we hear every day sounds the same, feels the same, looks the same. We can't even, there's no energy in it. Like this does not happen when you engage in your own evolution by focusing on creating from your soul's potential. So the first tip that I have to focus on what matters is step through the path of soul potential. Create from your soul's potential. What is soul's potential? Well, on a very basic level, it is the possibility of what you can create, right? Coming from the part of you that remembers all the aspects, the timeless aspects of who you are. So it's your ancient knowledge, your ancient wisdom, and your future wisdom activating at the same time. So you become, the bridge between worlds, right? You become the physical expression of magic, mystery, beauty, power, love, sovereign, sovereign choice, will, expression, right? Like you become the divine expression of you in that choice. Choose that path and find a way to get support on that path. Identity strategies. Okay, so what a lot of people will tell you about this is what you're meant to do. This is your natal, this is your birth chart, XYZ, XYZ, like all of these things that people tell you about who you are has nothing to do with your soul's potential. It may be part of your human blueprint, but your soul's blueprint is capable of so much more. So consistently remind yourself of that. And this leads me to the second tip. The second thing that I would tell you is important. Question what you are being sold. Like really question what you are being sold. When somebody tells you something about you, ask yourself deep down on a soul level, is this true? And the answer for me is always, well, it could be if you cared about it. It could be if you chose to make that a part of who you are. And it could also not be. So the answer is yes, and I'm capable of so much more. And the thing that is really important on this topic within this conversation is that it's not to denounce that there can be assistance in different ways of looking at ourselves and defining ourselves. But it comes back to what version of you do you serve? What version of you are you walking as in the world? Because everything is information as it comes our way. And information can be used many different ways by us. And so really question what you're being sold. A lot of times people do not learn how to do this on a quote unquote spiritual level. And then we end up feeling victimized by these teachings that we enroll ourselves in because we don't even have the awareness that we are saying yes to an invitation of self-belief when somebody else tells us something and we feel bamboozled or taken advantage of. But going back to what I was saying in the beginning of this chat, it's like you are self-initiated evolution. And the paths that you go down have consequence in your life. And you could simply see that as cause and effect. So really slow down and think about that. That's my second tip. And my third tip is understand that you can shift the field, right? So you can always decide to transform something that you are engaging with because you can. You can shift your awareness, you can shift your thoughts, you can shift your behavior, you can shift the way that you choose. You have the power to always, if you believe in your own will and capacity as creator, then you can shift the field. And so the question, some people say things like, well, everything is as intended, right? Happens as it is meant to happen. Well, yes, because if who you are is the one who's applying meaning, but that doesn't mean to take a passive position in that. Because if you take an active, proactive position in that, then who you are, who creates what it is meant to be, is different, right? And so there is agency present. Let me sum this up for you in very simple terms. My first piece of advice is to choose to initiate yourself on a path of spiritual, personal, evolutionary growth in service to possibility and potential, and to understand how to engage in teachings that are good for the soul. My second piece is to not be a victim of the learning that you have chosen. Question what you are being sold. Fact check everything against, is this in service to what I desire to dream and create in the world? Is this going to limit me? Is this going to box me in? Is this belief useful? Or is it not aligned? And 3, to understand that you have the capacity to shift the field as you shift yourself. So there are not fixed point references on anything. And pay attention to how you talk about yourself. Pay attention to how you talk about the things that you're creating in the world. Don't say, I'm not good at that because da da da. Or I can't do that because da da da. If you are going to create a boundary and a border around what you can and cannot do, make sure that you are cognizant and present with how it serves you. It may serve you to say I'm not available for XYZ because I already know that I'm focused on creating something else in the world right now, and I may come back to it later and choose to focus on it, but not right at the moment. Can you please help me? Right? That's an empowered position of quote unquote potential versus limitation, right? Because you're not limiting yourself, but you're saying like, this is where I'm focused right now. I need support in these areas, etc. So there's so much we can do to really fast track our journey, accelerate our spiritual journey, which is the topic of this conversation. And as always, whatever is perfect for you is perfect for you. But there are certain people in the world right now who resonate with content and topics and things that I'm talking about, who really feel that there's a potential for acceleration. And for me, acceleration is really just about using that time wisely that I have, meaning the past, the present, and the future that I described in the beginning of this episode. So I thank you for being here. And if you love this talk, please share it with somebody, connect with me. You can find us at sinatia.com. And if you're interested in going deeper with me, click on the show notes, find out more about the calling, find out more about Divinios, message me. You can find me on socials. I'm all over the place, and I look forward to connecting with you again. Bye.